The greatest victories are not always won through confrontation. Sometimes the most devastating defeat you can give an enemy is forcing them to realize they no longer have power over you. History remembers those who controlled their emotions, mastered their silence, and allowed their actions to speak louder than any insult ever could. Niccolò Machiavelli understood a darker truth about human nature. People reveal their weaknesses when they believe they have control over you. The moment you stop reacting, stop seeking approval, and stop giving your enemies the emotional response they crave, the balance of power begins to shift. In this journey, you will discover the psychological strategies behind silent dominance, the art of making your enemies question themselves, and why true power often appears when you say nothing at all. Stay until the end, because the final lesson may change the way you handle every person who tries to challenge you. If you value understanding human nature and the hidden strategies of power, subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and comment which country you are watching from. Your presence here is part of this journey. Section 1. The Power of Silence. The first lesson in defeating your enemies begins with understanding a truth that most people never accept. Your reaction is your greatest weakness. The moment someone can control your emotions, they can control your behavior. A person who can make you angry, desperate, defensive, or insecure already has influence over your decisions. This is why silence can become one of the most powerful weapons in human conflict. Machiavelli studied the nature of power and understood that appearances often matter more than intentions. People judge strength by what they can see. They notice confidence, discipline, patience, and control. They also notice fear, desperation, and the need to prove yourself. When an enemy tries to provoke you and you immediately respond, you reveal that they still have access to your mind. But when you remain calm, you create uncertainty. They begin to wonder what you are thinking, what you know, and why their attempts no longer affect you. The person who loses control first usually loses the advantage. This is a principle that has existed throughout history. Leaders who acted from emotion often made decisions that destroyed their position. Those who remained composed were able to observe the battlefield, understand their opponents, and choose the perfect moment to act. Your enemies often expect you to fight on their terms. They expect arguments, explanations, emotional reactions, and attempts to defend your reputation. They want you to enter a game where they feel comfortable. But the person who refuses to play that game changes the entire dynamic. Silence removes the satisfaction of seeing you affected. It creates a space where your opponent is forced to face their own behavior. One of the most uncomfortable experiences for someone who seeks control is being ignored by the person they wanted to manipulate, not because silence is meant to show cruelty, but because it removes the reward they were searching for. Many conflicts continue because both sides feed each other's emotions. Anger creates more anger. Pride creates more pride. The battle continues because both people are fighting for validation. Machiavelli recognized that power is not always about attacking. Sometimes power is about allowing others to expose themselves. When someone constantly tries to damage your image, provoke you, or bring you into unnecessary conflict, their actions reveal more about them than they reveal about you. The person who remains steady allows the world to observe the difference between uncontrolled emotion and calculated composure. This does not mean becoming passive or accepting disrespect. Silence is not weakness when it comes from confidence. A person who stays quiet because they are afraid is different from a person who stays quiet because they understand the situation. True silence comes from knowing that not every battle deserves your energy. The greatest humiliation you can give an enemy is not an insult. It is showing them that they no longer have the ability to disturb your peace. It is walking forward while they are still trapped, trying to pull you backward. It is proving through your actions that their opinions, attacks, and attempts at control have lost their importance. The world often teaches people to answer every challenge, defend every accusation, and prove themselves to everyone. But wisdom teaches something different. Not every attack deserves a response. Not every person deserves access to your emotions. Not every battle deserves your attention. The strongest individuals understand that attention is a form of power. Where you place your focus determines what grows in your life. Giving endless attention to enemies gives them influence. Removing that attention takes the power back. Machiavelli would remind us that people are constantly observing. They watch how you handle pressure. They watch whether you collapse when challenged or whether you remain composed. The person who masters themselves becomes difficult to manipulate because there is nothing easy to control. Your silence becomes a message. Your discipline becomes a statement. Your progress becomes the answer. And when your enemies realize that they can no longer provoke you, they face the most painful truth. They are no longer important enough to control your emotions. Section 3. The discipline of emotional control. The greatest battles are rarely fought against other people. The most important battle happens within yourself. Before you can overcome an enemy, you must first master the part of you that they are trying to control. This is the foundation of true power. Machiavelli understood that a person who cannot control their own emotions becomes vulnerable. Anger, fear, pride, and desperation can transform intelligent people into careless ones. When emotions take control, strategy disappears. The person who reacts without thinking gives their opponent exactly what they wanted. Emotional control is not the absence of feelings. It is the ability to experience emotions without allowing them to command your actions. A powerful person can feel anger and still choose patience. They can feel insulted and still choose dignity. They can feel the desire to respond and still understand that silence may create a greater advantage. This is where many people lose their power. They believe strength is shown through immediate confrontation. They think the loudest person in the room is the strongest. But history repeatedly shows the opposite. The person who controls themselves while everyone else loses control often becomes the person with the greatest influence. Machiavelli studied leaders, rulers, and the behavior of people under pressure. He recognized that perception shapes reality. A person who remains calm during chaos appears stronger because others cannot easily understand their intentions. They cannot predict their next move. They cannot identify their weaknesses. Your enemies are always looking for emotional openings. They observe your reactions. They notice what bothers you. They remember what makes you defensive. They collect information about your insecurities because emotional reactions reveal where your vulnerabilities exist. The person who masters their emotions closes those doors. Imagine someone attempting to provoke you with insults, criticism, or disrespect. Their goal is not simply to hurt your feelings. Their deeper goal is to change your behavior. They want you to abandon your principles, make mistakes, and act in a way that damages your own image. This is the hidden strategy behind many conflicts. The enemy does not always need to defeat you directly. Sometimes they only need you to defeat yourself. A person controlled by emotion becomes their own enemy. But someone who develops discipline becomes difficult to manipulate. They create distance between what happens and how they respond. In that small moment of space, power exists. That moment allows intelligence to return. Instead of asking, "How do I hurt this person back?" a disciplined person asks, "What outcome benefits me the most?" Instead of thinking, "How do I prove I am right?" they think, "How do I maintain control?" This difference separates emotional people from strategic people. Machiavelli would argue that the individual who understands human nature has an advantage over those who only follow their impulses. Most people reveal themselves when they are angry. They speak too much. They expose their intentions. They make promises they cannot keep. They reveal exactly what they fear. The calm person watches. The calm person learns. The calm person chooses the right moment. Silence becomes powerful because it forces others to fill the empty space with their own assumptions. When you refuse to immediately react, people often reveal more than they intended. They continue talking. They continue explaining. They continue showing their emotions while you remain in control. This is why emotional discipline is a form of protection. It prevents others from gaining access to your inner world without permission. Not everyone deserves to know what affects you. Not everyone deserves to know your plans. Not everyone deserves to see your frustration. Privacy is power. Many people underestimate the importance of controlling their expressions, words, and reactions. They believe honesty means displaying every emotion they feel. But wisdom understands that having emotions does not mean surrendering control of them. A person can be passionate without being reckless. They can be confident without being arrogant. They can defend themselves without becoming consumed by conflict. The greatest humiliation you can give someone who wants to destroy your peace is showing them that they failed before the battle even started. They expected you to become angry. You became wiser. They expected you to lose control. You became more disciplined. They expected you to chase their approval. You focused on your own mission. This is the silent transformation that enemies fear. They are not defeated because you attacked them. They are defeated because their influence disappeared. When you master yourself, you remove the weapon they were using against you. Your emotions no longer belong to them. Your attention no longer belongs to them. Your future no longer depends on their opinion. The person who controls their emotions becomes unpredictable, and unpredictability creates strength. Those who cannot control you cannot easily defeat you. The final victory is not making your enemy feel small. The final victory is becoming so powerful within yourself that their attempts no longer matter. Section 4. The strategy of quiet success. The most painful defeat an enemy can experience is watching you succeed without needing their approval. Nothing creates more frustration for those who wish to see you fail than witnessing your growth, your discipline, and your progress, while their attempts to stop you become meaningless. Machiavelli understood a fundamental principle of power. Results speak louder than explanations. People can argue with your words, question your intentions, and criticize your decisions, but they cannot easily argue with undeniable results. Success becomes a language that requires no defense. This is why quiet success is such a powerful strategy. Many people make the mistake of announcing every goal, every plan, and every ambition before they have created anything. They seek recognition before they have earned it. They want others to see the process before the outcome exists. But revealing too much too early gives enemies information they can use against you. Machiavelli understood the value of discretion. A person who exposes every move becomes easy to predict. A person who works in silence creates uncertainty. They allow others to underestimate them while they continue building strength. The world often rewards those who create results, not those who constantly explain themselves. Your enemies may laugh at your goals. They may doubt your abilities. They may even try to convince others that you will fail. But every hour you spend improving yourself is a silent response to their opinions. You do not need to argue with someone who has already decided to underestimate you. You need to become undeniable. Quiet success is not about trying to make others jealous. It is about removing the need to prove yourself. When you are focused on becoming better, you stop wasting energy fighting every person who doubts you. You understand that time is one of the most valuable resources you possess. Every moment spent defending yourself is a moment taken away from building yourself. This is where many people lose their advantage. They allow their enemies to control their attention. They wake up thinking about criticism. They make decisions based on what others might say. They adjust their lives around people who are not contributing to their future. Machiavelli would recognize this as surrendering power. The person who controls your attention controls part of your life. A strategic person protects their focus. They understand that enemies often create distractions because distractions prevent growth. A person constantly involved in conflict has less time to develop their skills, improve their position, and create opportunities. The smartest response is often not confrontation, it is advancement. When your life improves, your confidence increases naturally. You no longer need to announce your worth because your actions demonstrate it. The people who criticized you begin to see the difference between empty confidence and real progress. Real power does not need constant advertisement. A tree does not need to prove it is growing. Its height becomes the evidence. A river does not need to announce its strength. Its movement reveals its power. A person who is truly improving does not need to convince everyone around them. Their transformation becomes visible. This is why success can become a form of psychological victory. Not because you are trying to defeat others, but because you have become someone who cannot be easily controlled by their opinions. An enemy who once believed they could affect your confidence begins to lose their influence. They see that their criticism did not stop you, their doubts did not weaken you. Their attempts to hold you back only became part of the story of your rise. This creates a powerful shift. The person who once judged you begins watching you. The person who once questioned you begins respecting you. The person who once wanted your attention begins realizing they no longer have it. Machiavelli understood that perception is a battlefield. People often change their opinion when they see strength demonstrated consistently. Words can be ignored. Actions are harder to dismiss. But quiet success requires patience. Many people fail because they want immediate recognition. They want revenge today. They want everyone to admit they were wrong immediately. But true strategic thinking understands that time can become an ally. Let others speak. Let others doubt. Let others underestimate. While they are focused on your current position, you are creating your future position. The greatest humiliation is not telling your enemies that they were wrong. It is allowing them to discover it themselves. When your results become impossible to ignore, you do not need to remind anyone of the past. You do not need to explain every sacrifice. You do not need to demand respect. Respect arrives when people are forced to recognize reality. Your silence during the process becomes part of the message. Your discipline becomes part of the message. Your success becomes the final answer. The person who once tried to reduce your value eventually has to face the truth. They were fighting against someone who was too focused on becoming better to be distracted. And that is the ultimate power of quiet success. You do not destroy your enemies by attacking them. You overcome them by becoming someone they can no longer reach. Section 5. The weapon of self-mastery. The person who masters themselves becomes a person that others cannot easily control. This is one of the deepest lessons behind power, influence, and human behavior. Before trying to overcome an enemy, you must first understand that the greatest battlefield is not outside of you. It is within you. Machiavelli understood that the greatest weakness of many people was not a lack of intelligence or ability. It was a lack of discipline. They allowed emotions, desires, and impulses to control their decisions. They reacted to every challenge, answered every insult, and entered every conflict as if every battle was necessary. But powerful individuals understand something different. Not every attack deserves a response. Not every opponent deserves your attention. Not every conflict deserves your energy. Self-mastery begins when you stop allowing external forces to determine your internal state. Someone can criticize you, but they cannot control your confidence. Someone can challenge you, but they cannot control your direction. Someone can attempt to provoke you, but they cannot control your actions unless you give them permission. This is the difference between a person who is controlled and a person who is free. Many people believe their enemies have power because they can create emotional reactions. They think the person who insults them has authority over their feelings. They believe the person who doubts them has influence over their future. But this is an illusion. The moment you realize that your emotions belong to you alone, you take back control. Machiavelli studied how leaders maintained authority in difficult situations. He understood that people naturally follow those who appear composed, confident, and capable under pressure. A person who remains calm during chaos creates an image of strength. A person who loses control reveals vulnerability. This does not mean pretending to be emotionless. It means becoming the person who decides what emotions deserve action. Anger can be felt without being followed. Disappointment can exist without becoming destruction. Fear can appear without becoming a reason to stop. Self-mastery transforms emotions from weaknesses into information. A wise person does not ignore their emotions. They study them. They ask why they feel a certain way. They understand what triggered them. They decide whether the reaction serves their goals or destroys them. This is where enemies often lose their advantage. They expect you to behave like everyone else. They expect you to become angry. They expect you to defend your ego. They expect you to waste your energy proving something. But when you refuse to follow their expectations, you become difficult to manipulate. Predictability creates weakness. Discipline creates power. Machiavelli knew that people who could control themselves were more dangerous than people who simply had strength. Physical power can be challenged. Wealth can be lost. Reputation can change. But a disciplined mind is a weapon that remains with you. A person with self-mastery does not need to win every argument because they understand that winning an argument and winning in life are not the same thing. Sometimes the person who says the last word loses the greater battle because they sacrifice their peace to prove a point. Sometimes the person who walks away wins because they protected their future. This is why silence, patience, and discipline are connected. They all come from the same source: control over yourself. Your enemy wants access to your emotions because emotions create opportunities. When you are angry, you may speak without thinking. When you are hurt, you may act without strategy. When you are desperate, you may accept situations that weaken you. Self-mastery closes those doors. It creates a person who moves with intention. A person who knows their value does not need constant validation. They do not need to convince everyone that they are capable. They understand that their actions will eventually reveal the truth. This mindset creates a powerful psychological shift. Instead of asking, "How do I make my enemy respect me?" you begin asking, "How do I become someone whose respect comes naturally?" Instead of asking, "How do I defeat the person against me?" you begin asking, "How do I become impossible to defeat?" This is the transformation that changes everything. Your enemy may still speak, they may still criticize, they may still attempt to create doubt, but their words lose their power because your identity is no longer built on external approval. You become anchored, you become focused, you become difficult to shake. The greatest humiliation you can give someone who wants to control you is showing them that they failed to control the most important thing: you. They cannot control your emotions. They cannot control your decisions. They cannot control your future because you have taken ownership of yourself. And once a person masters themselves, they become the one force their enemies cannot overcome. The ultimate victory is not defeating another person. The ultimate victory is becoming the kind of person who no longer needs to. Section 6. The power of controlled presence. A person does not need to speak loudly to be powerful. In many situations, the strongest presence in the room belongs to the person who says the least but carries the most confidence. This is the power of controlled presence, the ability to influence others through composure, discipline, and the way you carry yourself. Machiavelli understood that people are constantly judging what they see. Human beings respond not only to words, but also to behavior, confidence, and perception. Before people understand your intentions, they observe your actions. Before they believe your promises, they study your consistency. This is why your presence can become a silent weapon. Many people try to gain respect by demanding it. They explain their importance, defend their reputation, and attempt to convince others of their value. But true authority rarely comes from forcing people to recognize you. It comes from becoming impossible to ignore. A person with controlled presence does not chase attention. They do not need to announce their strength because their behavior already communicates it. Their confidence is visible in the way they handle pressure, the way they respond to challenges, and the way they remain stable when others attempt to create chaos. This creates a psychological effect. People become curious about what they cannot easily understand. When someone expects you to react with anger but you respond with calmness, they notice. When someone expects you to defend yourself endlessly but you choose silence, they notice. When someone expects you to break under pressure but you continue moving forward, they notice. Your composure becomes a message. Machiavelli recognized that perception is a major part of power. In human relationships, people often respond to what they believe about someone. A person who appears desperate may be treated as weak. A person who appears confident and controlled is often treated with more respect. This does not mean pretending to be someone you are not. It means understanding that your behavior communicates before your words do. Every reaction teaches people how to treat you. If you allow someone to constantly interrupt your peace, they learn that they can affect you. If you constantly defend yourself against every accusation, they learn that they can pull your attention whenever they want. But when you establish control over yourself, you change the relationship. You teach others that access to your emotions is not guaranteed. This is why controlled presence can frustrate enemies more than direct confrontation. A confrontation gives them a stage. It gives them an opportunity to exchange energy with you. It gives them proof that they can still influence your behavior. But calm confidence removes the stage completely. There is something deeply uncomfortable for a person who wants power over you when they realize they no longer have it. They may continue trying different methods. They may change their words. They may attempt different strategies. But every failed attempt reinforces the same conclusion. You are no longer easily moved. This is one of the reasons successful leaders often appear patient. They understand that reacting immediately can reduce their position. They know that emotional decisions are often made from a place of weakness. Patience creates options. When you remain calm, you can observe more clearly. You can identify patterns. You can understand motivations. You can choose the best moment to act instead of being forced into action. This is strategic thinking. Your enemies often want urgency because urgency creates mistakes. They want you to feel pressured. They want you to respond before thinking. They want emotion to replace intelligence. Controlled presence destroys that strategy. You become the person who decides when and how the situation moves. This does not mean you avoid every challenge. A person with true confidence can confront problems when necessary. The difference is that they do not confront from insecurity. They act from purpose. There is a major difference between reacting because you feel threatened and responding because you have chosen your action. One comes from weakness, the other comes from power. The person who controls their presence controls the impression they leave behind. They understand that reputation is built through repeated behavior. One moment of anger can destroy years of discipline. One careless reaction can reveal weaknesses that others may use. This is why self-control becomes a form of protection. Your enemies cannot use information against you if you do not constantly reveal it. Your enemies cannot predict your next move if you do not allow emotion to guide you. Your enemies cannot reduce your value if you do not depend on their opinion. The silent message of controlled presence is simple. I know who I am. I know where I am going, and nothing you do can remove me from my path. That is the kind of confidence that creates respect without demanding it. That is the kind of power that does not need to announce itself. And that is why the person who masters their presence can defeat enemies without ever needing to fight them. Section 7. The Art of Strategic Distance. One of the most underestimated forms of power is knowing when to step away. Many people believe victory requires direct confrontation, but history has shown that sometimes the strongest move is creating distance. Not every enemy must be defeated through conflict. Some must simply be removed from your access, your attention, and your energy. Machiavelli understood that proximity creates influence. The closer someone is to your emotions, your decisions, and your daily life, the more opportunities they have to affect you. Distance changes the balance of power because it limits their ability to interfere. A person who always has access to you can study your reactions. They can recognize your patterns. They can identify your weaknesses. But when you create strategic distance, you remove the information they depend on. Silence and distance together create uncertainty. Many people make the mistake of staying close to those who constantly harm their confidence because they believe they must prove themselves. They remain available to people who disrespect them because they want recognition from the very people who refuse to give it. But seeking approval from someone who benefits from your insecurity is a losing strategy. Machiavelli would understand that power requires awareness. You must recognize which relationships strengthen your position and which relationships slowly weaken it. Not everyone who has access to you deserves that privilege. Your time, attention, and energy are valuable resources. Giving them to someone who constantly attempts to damage your peace is like giving an opponent the tools they need to defeat you. Strategic distance is not about hatred. It is not about revenge. It is about understanding that some battles become impossible to win Because you are fighting on a battlefield designed by someone else. The smartest move is sometimes changing the battlefield completely. When you step away, you create space to think clearly. You stop reacting to constant pressure. You stop allowing another person's behavior to determine your emotional state. You regain the ability to make decisions based on your goals rather than their actions. This is a psychological shift. The person who once had the power to disturb you begins losing that power. They notice the difference. They notice that you no longer respond the same way. They notice that their words no longer create the same reaction. They notice that their presence no longer controls your attention. This is one of the deepest forms of humiliation because it removes the reward they were seeking. Many people who create conflict are not only looking for victory, they are looking for influence. They want proof that they can enter your mind whenever they want. They want evidence that their actions still matter. Strategic distance takes that away. You do not need to announce that you are leaving. You do not need to explain every reason. You do not need to create a dramatic final moment. Sometimes the most powerful exit is the quietest one. Machiavelli understood the importance of controlling appearances. When you constantly explain yourself, you give others opportunities to challenge your decisions. When you confidently move forward, you communicate certainty. A person who knows their direction does not need permission to continue. This is why distance can create respect. People often value what they can no longer easily access. When someone realizes they no longer have unlimited influence over you, their perception changes. The dynamic changes, the balance changes, the power changes. However, strategic distance requires discipline. Many people create distance physically but remain emotionally connected. They leave the conversation but continue thinking about it. They stop responding but continue allowing the person to control their feelings. True distance happens internally first. You must release the need to win every argument. You must release the desire to make everyone understand your perspective. You must release the expectation that everyone will recognize your value. Your peace cannot depend on another person's awareness. A person who is focused on growth does not spend every day watching those who try to stop them. They do not build their future while constantly looking backward. They move forward. This is what makes strategic distance so powerful. It is not an escape from weakness. It is a decision made from strength. You are choosing where your energy goes. You are choosing who receives access to your attention. You are choosing what deserves space in your life. And when you make that choice, enemies lose the ability to control the most important battlefield, your mind. The person who wanted a reaction receives calm. The person who wanted attention receives absence. The person who wanted control discovers they no longer have it. That is the silent victory of strategic distance. You do not defeat every enemy by fighting harder. Sometimes you defeat them by becoming unreachable. Section 8. The influence of unspoken confidence. The most powerful people are not always the ones who speak the most. Often, the person with the greatest influence is the one who does not need to constantly prove anything. Their confidence is not built through words, arguments, or approval from others. It comes from a deep understanding of who they are and where they are going. Machiavelli understood that appearances influence human behavior. People observe confidence before they understand competence. They notice how someone handles pressure, how they respond to criticism, and how they carry themselves when challenged. This is why unspoken confidence can become one of the strongest forms of psychological influence. A person who truly believes in themselves does not need to convince everyone around them. They do not chase every misunderstanding. They do not fight every accusation. They understand that constantly defending their worth can sometimes communicate insecurity rather than strength. The need to prove yourself gives power to those who question you. Confidence removes that power. Your enemies often expect you to seek their approval. They expect you to become frustrated when they criticize you. They expect you to explain yourself because they believe your confidence depends on their acceptance. But when you stop seeking validation, you change the entire dynamic. The person who once believed they could define your value discovers that they never had that authority. This is a difficult realization for someone who wants control over another person. Machiavelli recognized that influence is connected to perception. People are naturally drawn toward individuals who appear certain, disciplined, and emotionally stable. Confidence creates a presence that cannot easily be ignored because it communicates inner strength. However, true confidence is different from arrogance. Arrogance requires an audience. Confidence does not. Arrogance needs constant reminders of superiority. Confidence remains steady even when nobody is watching. Arrogance seeks to make others feel smaller. Confidence simply refuses to become smaller. This distinction is important because many people confuse intimidation with power. They believe they must attack others to appear strong. They believe they must dominate conversations and prove they are right. But the strongest individuals understand something deeper. The person who is secure does not need to constantly compete. They focus on becoming better. This creates a psychological advantage because enemies often expect you to enter their emotional battlefield. They want you to compare yourself. They want you to react. They want you to measure your worth based on their opinions. Unspoken confidence breaks that cycle. You stop asking whether they believe in you. You start focusing on whether you believe in yourself. This internal shift changes everything. A person who trusts their own path becomes difficult to manipulate. Compliments do not control them. Criticism does not destroy them. Approval does not define them. They become emotionally independent. Machiavelli understood that dependence creates vulnerability. The person who needs something from others can be influenced by those who control that resource. If you need approval, someone can manipulate you through rejection. If you need recognition, someone can control you through criticism. But when you become comfortable standing alone, you remove those weapons. Your confidence becomes yours. This is why silence can be so powerful. Sometimes the absence of a response communicates more than 1,000 explanations. When someone attacks your character and you continue improving, your actions create a contradiction they cannot ignore. They expected you to collapse. You became stronger. They expected you to lose focus. You became more determined. They expected their words to define you. You proved they had no power. The greatest response to those who doubt you is not always a speech. Sometimes it is a life that demonstrates they were wrong. Success, discipline, and consistency create a message that does not require translation. This is why people with real confidence often appear calm. They are not calm because they have never been challenged. They are calm because they have learned that challenges do not determine their value. They understand that every person has the right to an opinion, but no person has the right to control their identity. That level of confidence creates a different kind of power. It changes how people see you. It changes how enemies approach you. It changes how you see yourself. The person who once tried to make you feel insignificant begins realizing something uncomfortable. Their opinion was never the source of your value. Their approval was never the source of your confidence. Their rejection was never the source of your failure. You were always responsible for becoming who you wanted to become. And when you understand that, you gain a power that cannot be taken away. The power of unspoken confidence. The power of a person who no longer needs to prove their strength because their existence already demonstrates it. Section 9. The victory of becoming untouchable. The greatest victory over an enemy is not making them regret what they did to you. The greatest victory is reaching a point where what they do no longer affects who you are. This is the moment when you become untouchable, not because you are protected from criticism or conflict, but because you have developed a strength that cannot be easily damaged. Machiavelli understood that true power begins with independence. A person who depends on others for confidence, approval, or recognition gives those people control over their emotional state. But the person who builds their foundation within themselves becomes far more difficult to influence. An enemy can only hurt what they can reach. If they cannot reach your confidence, they cannot destroy it. If they cannot reach your focus, they cannot distract you. If they cannot reach your purpose, they cannot stop you. This is the final stage of psychological control. becoming someone who cannot be easily moved. Many people spend their lives trying to defeat every person who challenges them. They want to prove every critic wrong. They want every enemy to admit they made a mistake. They want to see the moment when someone who doubted them finally recognizes their success. But this mindset still keeps the enemy in control. Why? Because your attention is still connected to them. You are still waiting for their reaction. You are still measuring your victory through their perspective. Machiavelli would recognize this as a hidden weakness. A person who needs their enemy to acknowledge their success is still allowing that enemy to influence them. The ultimate victory is when their recognition becomes irrelevant. You no longer build to prove something. You build because it is who you are. You no longer improve because someone underestimated you. You improve because growth has become your standard. You no longer succeed because you want others to regret losing you. You succeed because your future deserves your commitment. This is the transformation from emotional conflict to personal power. The enemy loses when they realize they are no longer part of your motivation. Many people believe revenge is the strongest response to betrayal, disrespect, or opposition. But revenge keeps you connected to the person who harmed you. It forces you to continue carrying their influence. Freedom is different. Freedom is when you can remember what happened without allowing it to control your present. This does not mean forgetting lessons. Wisdom comes from remembering patterns. You learn who people are. You recognize behaviors. You become more aware of intentions. But you stop allowing those experiences to define your identity. Machiavelli understood that the most successful individuals were those who adapted. They learned from every challenge without allowing every challenge to destroy their direction. Your enemies can become teachers, not because their actions were right, but because every challenge reveals something about yourself. It reveals your patience. It reveals your discipline. It reveals your ability to continue when things become difficult. The person who survives pressure becomes stronger because pressure exposes weaknesses and creates opportunities for growth. This is why becoming untouchable is not about becoming cold. It is about becoming centered. A cold person avoids emotions because they are afraid of being hurt. A powerful person understands emotions but chooses not to be controlled by them. That difference separates weakness from strength. Your enemy may continue speaking. They may continue judging. They may continue hoping you fail, but their actions become background noise because your focus is connected to something greater, your mission, your values, your future. This is the point where silence becomes complete. You no longer remain silent because you are trying to make someone wonder what you think. You remain silent because you no longer need to explain yourself. You no longer avoid arguments because you are afraid. You avoid unnecessary arguments because your energy has greater value. You no longer walk away because you have lost. You walk away because you have chosen what deserves your presence. This is the mindset of someone who has mastered the art of power. They understand that not every person deserves access to their thoughts. Not every opinion deserves consideration. Not every attack deserves a response. The person who reaches this level becomes dangerous in the most peaceful way. They cannot be easily provoked. They cannot be easily distracted. They cannot be easily controlled. And this is what truly defeats an enemy. Not their pain, not their failure, not their embarrassment. Their realization that they no longer have the ability to affect you. The person who once wanted to break your confidence sees something they never expected. You did not become weaker because of their actions. You became stronger despite them. You did not lose yourself because of their attacks. You discovered yourself through overcoming them. And now they face the final truth. The greatest humiliation is not being defeated by someone else. The greatest humiliation is realizing that the person you tried to destroy became someone you can no longer reach. Section 10. The final lesson of silent power. The final lesson of power is understanding that the greatest victories are often invisible. They are not always marked by applause, recognition, or the defeat of another person. The deepest victories happen when you transform yourself into someone who no longer needs to fight for respect because your actions, discipline, and character already command it. Machiavelli understood that power is not simply about controlling others. The highest form of power begins with controlling yourself. A person who cannot govern their own emotions, reactions, and decisions will always be vulnerable to those who understand how to manipulate them. But the person who masters themselves becomes difficult to defeat. Throughout history, the individuals who created lasting influence were not always the loudest or the most aggressive. Many were patient observers. They understood timing. They understood human behavior. They understood that every reaction carries consequences. They knew that sometimes the strongest answer was no answer at all. This is the final secret of silent power. You do not humiliate your enemies by attacking their weaknesses. You humiliate them by becoming proof that their efforts failed. Every insult you ignored, every attempt to distract you that did not work, every moment when someone expected you to collapse and you continued forward. All of these moments become evidence of your strength. Your transformation becomes the message. The person who once wanted to see you fail is forced to watch you grow. The person who wanted your attention sees that they no longer have access to your mind. The person who wanted to control your emotions discovers that they lost the ability to influence your behavior. This is a defeat that cannot be argued against because it is created through reality. Machiavelli understood that appearances matter, but he also understood that appearances must eventually be supported by results. A person can pretend to be powerful for a short time, but consistency reveals the truth. Real power survives observation. Real confidence survives criticism. Real discipline survives pressure. This is why the final stage of silent power is becoming consistent. Anyone can appear strong during easy moments. Anyone can remain confident when everything is going well. The true test comes when you are challenged, when people doubt you, when opportunities disappear, when your enemies expect you to give up. The person who continues moving forward during those moments demonstrates a level of strength that cannot be easily imitated. Your enemies may understand your words, they may challenge your opinions, they may criticize your decisions, but they cannot easily defeat your results. Results are the evidence of discipline. Results are the evidence of patience. Results are the evidence that you chose growth instead of revenge. This is why focusing on yourself is the most powerful strategy. While others are spending their energy trying to damage your reputation, you are building something they cannot take away: your skills, your character, your knowledge, your future. The person who invests in themselves eventually becomes someone who no longer needs to compete for attention. They become the standard. This is the final shift in perspective. Stop asking how to make your enemies feel defeated. Start asking how to become impossible to ignore. Stop asking how to make people regret underestimating you. Start becoming someone whose progress speaks without permission. Stop asking how to win every battle. Start becoming someone who wins the war. Because life is not measured by how many arguments you win. It is measured by who you become after every challenge. Machiavelli would remind us that human beings are always watching. They observe how you respond when tested. They notice whether pressure breaks you or strengthens you. They notice whether you are controlled by emotions or guided by purpose. Your greatest statement is not what you say, it is what you become. The enemy who expected revenge sees discipline. The enemy who expected anger sees peace. The enemy who expected failure sees success. And this creates the ultimate psychological victory, not because you destroyed them, but because you became someone they can no longer affect. The silent warrior does not need to announce victory. The battlefield itself reveals the outcome. Your calm reveals it. Your progress reveals it. Your life reveals it. The person who once tried to take your power unknowingly helped you discover it, because every challenge forced you to become stronger. Every obstacle forced you to become wiser. Every attempt to bring you down forced you to build yourself higher. And now the final lesson becomes clear. The greatest humiliation you can give your enemies is not making them feel small. It is becoming so focused, so disciplined, and so powerful within yourself that they no longer matter in your story. True power is not found in controlling others. True power is found in no longer being controlled by anyone. That is the art of silent victory. That is the legacy of those who master themselves. And that is how you defeat your enemies without ever needing to say a word. After exploring these principles of silent power, the most important question is not whether you agree with Machiavelli's ideas, but how you choose to apply them in your own life. In my view, the deepest lesson is not about humiliating others or seeking revenge. It is about developing the discipline to control yourself when others expect you to lose control. The person who masters their emotions, protects their focus, and builds their own path becomes powerful without needing to prove anything. Silence, confidence, and personal growth can be stronger than any argument. However, power should always be guided by wisdom, because the same strategies that can protect you can also be misused if they are driven by ego or hatred. Now, I want to hear your perspective. Do you believe silence is truly one of the strongest ways to defeat an enemy? Or do you think direct confrontation is sometimes necessary? Share your thoughts in the comments and tell us what country you are watching from. Your opinion could create the next great discussion about human nature, power, and personal strength.